Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Claudia Schommeri from Circle, one of the partner involved within the SYNCHRO-NET project and leader of communication and dissemination activities. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you at the first SYNCHRO-NET webinar titled The Synchro-NET Simulator, Innovative Multimodal Freight Transport Planning for Logistic Company. The webinar is dedicated to the simulator developed by Politecnico di Torino. The webinar will develop through a first frontal session where Raquel Miguel Anton, project coordinator, will present the SYNCHRO-NET project. Later, the Politecnico di Torino team, led by Professor Roberto Taddei, will present and show in detail all simulator functionalities. I'd like to communicate that the webinar will be recorded. To eliminate the noise during the first frontal part of it, your microphone will be off. As you can see, the microphone icon is red. When the frontal session will be finished and the discussion will start, I will activate your microphone. The microphone icon will become green. If you want to ask a question, please click on the icon and on the top right to make a reservation. Following the reservation order, I will give the floor to you. Please wait the change of color of the microphone icon from red to green and start to speak. If you prefer to write a question, please write in your comments or questions into the box calling question. Thank you for your participation, and now I give the floor to Raquel Miguel Anton, project coordinator of SYNCHRO-NET. Okay, Raquel, can you start?
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Dear all, I am Raquel Miguel, project coordinator of SYNCHRO-NET project. I am working in DHL, the global market leader in the logistics industry. SYNCHRO-NET will demonstrate how a powerful and innovative synchro-modal supply chain EcoNet can identify and maximize opportunities for smart steaming and synchro-modal logistics, like reduce cost, reduce risk, reduce CO2 while ensuring service level and economic factors are not compromised. This project will run from May 2015 until November 2018. The three objectives of SYNCHRO-NET are increasing reliability and service level for logistics, guarantee cost-effective, robust solution, and reduce emission and cost for logistics operation. The benefits will be between 5 to 10% reduction in finished goods inventory holdings, between 12 to 20% reduction in hinterland transport costs, and between 25 to 30% increase in modal shift to rail. As illustrated in the picture, SYNCHRO-NET will provide a cloud-based EcoNet of advanced optimization, simulation, and decision support modules. The main components are synchro-modal logistics optimization, slow steaming simulation and control, synchro-modal supply chain risk analysis, dynamic stakeholder impact assessment, and external system. We will demonstrate this platform with three demonstrators. Firstly, East-West straight lane demonstrator. This demonstrator will involve long-haul shipments from Far East to Spain and vice versa from Spain to Far East. It will also involve inland movements by rail and truck to position the goods at their final destination or at port of departure from Spain. The second is the regional demonstrator. It will be focused on regional issues affecting in Irish supply chain that due to Ireland's geographical position and existing maritime transport service, delays and stresses in the supply chain have a direct cumulative effect on time and cost of transport for Irish importing and exporting organizations and consequently on the Irish economy. And the last is the pan-European demonstrator. This demonstrator will show how SYNCHRO-NET can be applied in the pan-European context from the perspective of logistic customers located in Greece who wish to optimize their supply chain operations, taking full advantage of the benefits that slow steaming and short shipping routes and synchro-modality can offer. Here in this slide, you can see the email of project coordination, synchronet@dhl.com. If you want more information or if you have some doubts, you can send one email to this email. And also you can see the website of SYNCHRO-NET project, the LinkedIn and Twitter, and you can check more information about the project here. Thank you very much. Claudia, you can continue.
Thank you, Raquel. Now, Roberto Taddei, professor at Politecnico di Torino, and Daniele Manerba, assistant professor at Politecnico di Torino, will introduce their research work and explain the simulator. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Roberto.
Hi, hello.
Good morning.
Well, fine. Thank you, Claudia. So welcome to everybody. I thank you for attending this first webinar of SYNCHRO-NET. I would like just to introduce our demo for today's webinar. The demo will be given by Daniele Manerba, who is one of our researchers in the Polito team. And I would like just to introduce, let's say, a general framework for the SYNCHRO-NET platform. You can see on the screen, let's say, the general structure of our SYNCHRO-NET platform. Well, we have three main, let's say, three main modules. Let's say the simulation, which is the green and yellow part. Then we have the, let's say, the tracking module, the track and booking module, which is the red part. And then we have the stakeholder assessments, which is the blue part, and the maritime, let's say, module, which connects to both to simulator and the tracking modules. So today, we will show you a demo referring to the simulation part. So we are dealing with the simulator module, which is the main, let's say, green modules in the screen, presented yet at the screen. And then we will spend also some minutes to describe the, let's say, the user configuration to use such a simulation, and the risk analysis. So risk analysis is a task where Fraunhofer Institute is mainly involved. And today we will show you how we could integrate the simulation with the risk assessment as well. Then we had the so-called supply chain distressor, which is the bottom module, green module. And with this distressing, we mean simply to, let's say, to calculate several alternatives route for the same origin and destination in order to allow the final user to compare different KPIs and select the best alternative. Of course, we have also a user interface, and today we will see how we can use it. So this is I stop here, and I give the floor to Daniele for the true demo. So thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Daniele from Politecnico di Torino, and what I'm going to show you is our simulator. And just to think to introduce the simulator into the Synchro-NET project, this tool, the simulator, is responsible mainly for providing strategic level decision support regarding routes and schedules for synchro-modal freight transportation. More precisely, by using optimization techniques and algorithm over, let's say, a well-defined geospatial and commercial information database, the simulation is able to find the best or the best possible solution and several alternatives according to users' different objectives and constraints also. And let's say the route optimization core of the simulator is used, as you can see in the previous slide, by other modules within the project, mainly by the real-time modules, the booking modules. But since advanced searching option and parameterization of the system is provided, the simulator can also be used as a, let's say, standalone application to simulate, to test, to compare different outcomes of different, let's say, scenario transportation. So what I'm going to present today is about this standalone application of the simulator. So this is basically the role and the purpose of our simulator. About the optimization core of the simulator, we can start by simply using the searching function that basically allow a user to select an origin and a destination for a shipment and some constraints on departure and arrival times. You can see here in the left of the screen a panel that is about the trip option, where you can put your origin location, for example, Cork in Ireland, and your destination location, for example, Patras in Greece. And of course, you can choose some constraints about the departure and the arrival time. And if you try to plan your trip, the simulator will return you a set of alternatives, and this optimization takes into account the synchronization of the schedules among the different itinerary legs, considering the lighting, the boarding, the transit time of each vehicle type. And of course, this optimizes over a synchro-modal scenarios, and the simulator tries to minimize different KPIs, for example, the distance traveled, the time elapsed, the CO2 emission, and the relative cost for the user. Note that in general, these three KPIs can be conflicting. You can see here in a sort of summary panel that we have 8 different alternatives to go from Cork to Patra, and in the graphical interface you see that the synchro-modality is needed, because we can have some direct route by ships. This is mainly the one that is drawn here on the map, but also you can have some composed routes by ship routes, truck routes, the one in green, or ship routes and rail routes, the one in orange. For each one of these alternatives, we can see in this table here several, let's say, indication. Within this indication, there are the 3 main KPIs of our optimization module that are, let's say, the elapsed time, the CO2 emission, and the length, the 3 colored one, but also other ones. So a total cost calculated on the basis of these 3 KPIs, the number of stops that we need to do to create the route, and the total duration of the route. Note that the total duration cannot be identical to the elapsed time, because the elapsed time also includes the time that we wait, and not only the time that we are traveling by some vehicle. And at the end, we see here a column that it's called, let's say, by a placeholder risk. But here I will show you in the future how we put some values according to some risk indicators developed, as explained before, by another partner in our project. So this is mainly the main summary. But if you go into each one of the route, you can see, of course, a list of details for each one of the sub-routes. And for each one of the stop, you can see, for example, the boarding time, where to board, the time of the transit, and the time of the alighting. In this case, we have two sub-routes with all the details. And at the end, also an itinerary summary with all this information divided per, for example, mode and KPIs. What I want to show you now is about how the user can, let's say, constrain or modify the optimization procedure by putting some preferences into the trip option panel. So, for example, if I don't want to use a full multi-modal vehicles, but only some types of vehicles, so for example, only rail and ship, and I replan my trip, the simulator will find, of course, only the situation, the alternatives that involve this type of modes and not the other ones, as was before. Of course, we can change different constraints about the time, but maybe the most important things, it's about this triangle here that put the attention about how much important it's a KPI for the user with respect to the other ones. So, for example, if I'm very interested in reducing the emission, and I put, let's say, this triangle in the very top part, and I replan my trip, so the simulator will find for me and sort for me the alternatives by taking into account the fact that I'm more interested in reducing the emission. And as you said, for example, the very best alternative is to use a direct route by a ship that is using a smart steaming that is called slow steaming, so it has a very slow emission type. But of course, if I use some combination of the three KPIs, the one I prefer, the simulator will find again some different alternatives and sort for me. Another thing that our simulator is able to do is to create a sort of consolidation plan for a single departure but multi-destination scenarios. So, for example, I can add here different location to send my shipment or part of my shipment. So, for example, Berlin, Rome, and I can also add something in the east, like Sofia, and plan for this trip. As you can see now, the result of this optimization is not anymore a single route, but is a sort of trees of routes that start from the location that I put as a departure location, and it goes to all the other locations by using some, let's say, ramification at some point. This is a sort of interesting option for consolidation scenario when we want to split at some point our cargoes to send it to different destination. As you can see here, in fact, the alternatives are not anymore single route, but are plans where some routes are in common. So, for example, the first route here by ship from Cork to Le Havre, probably, it's in common between all the trips, but then we have some split here in 3 sub-trees, and then other split here. So, of course, you can see all the details showed before for each one of the sub-routes, and they are much more complicated just because we are talking about a more complicated scenarios. So this is basically our the two let's say main modalities of our simulator. So the single destination and the multi-destination one. Of course, the simulator has several let's say advanced searching option that you can see at the bottom part of this panel here. So for example, if I ask for this itinerary again, but with some new constraints, the simulator will adapt the option according to them. So for example, I can force a certain route to be performed. This is because maybe I have a specific need to pass by a certain route. So for example, if I force Amsterdam to Bari route, and I save it and I replan for my trip, the simulator will find, okay, in this case, just one route that pass, I can show you, that pass exactly from the route that I forced. So the one from Amsterdam to Bari in Italy. Again, I can, for example, remove the forced route, but I don't know, I can put a specific location to pass by. For example, I'm interested in passing by a certain port, a certain location. So for example, if I put Trieste, maybe, in Italy also, and I replan, again, I will find a route that, as you can see here, pass by Trieste, as it wasn't before. Other advanced options are, of course, very similar. So I can not force, but ban some route or some stop. So, for example, here you can see that I'm passing by Le Havre, but for any reason, maybe I don't want to pass by that location. If I put Le Havre in the list of the banned location and I replan my trip, I will find several alternatives, but no one of these will pass by Le Havre, as you can see here, as you can see here, and here, and so on. Another interesting part of our simulator, apart, let's say, from the very optimization point of view, it's how we integrate the simulator with user configuration and accounting. We basically create a sort of database for each one of the user, in the sense that each user can use, create, and customize its own database of information, of commercial and geospatial information. Of course, the simulator provides from the very beginning a very still complex database of location and routes for any user, for all the users, but each user can customize the database as he wants. So, for example, to show these, now, as you can see, I'm not logging in the system, and you can see that if I'm searching for Shanghai, nothing appears. But if I log in as a particular user of the system, I will use the login of one of our partners, that is Costco. If I log in as a Costco and I search again for Shanghai, now Shanghai is available. And also the route that goes from Shanghai, for example, to Valencia are available, and I can search for them. So for example, in this case, I have two possibilities to go from Shanghai to Valencia by two different types of ships. So these demonstrate that different databases are used for different users. And one more interesting thing is what we call the GTFS editor. It's about customizing very deeply in detail the database of each one of the user. You can see here that you can edit the stops, so the location, the routes, the service that are basically the schedules of each one of the routes. And for each one of the stops, for example, you can see where it is, the latitude, the longitude, type of the country. And for the routes instead, you can see, for example, a rail route from Le Havre to Amsterdam. I'm sorry, from Amsterdam to Le Havre, and you can see here all the, let's say, points where this route deviate. And you can, of course, modify these and create some more points to give more density and precision to your route, and let's say edit whatever you want, the routes and the stops and the schedules. Just to give you an example, I will try to create a point on a map that I'm interested in. For example, the simulator is not able to know where my the depot of my company is, but if I decide, for example, that my depot is exactly here in Vierzon in France, and I put an interesting name like depot 1, and this is of type depot, and it's located in France, and I add this new location to the database. When I do that, and I reload basically the system, what I can show you now is that going into the trip planner as before, sorry for this view, I can find here my new depot created exactly here in Vierzon in France. So this is what we call very precisely customizing of the commercial geospatial data for each one of the users. And if I log out from Costco and I search again from depot 1, you can see that it's disappeared, because this is not a stop, a location that is in common for each one of the user, but it's just for the user of which I was logged in, so Costco. This is basically terminate what I want to show you on the system, but I just want to sketch for you some, let's say, future development that we are going to implement. And basically what we are working now, it's about introducing the optimization that you have seen, but also considering a certain number of containers for each one of the destination that we want to send our cargoes. So we will able to split this container at some point by using also constraints related to the capacity of each one of the vehicle used. So for example, if we use a truck vehicle and we can put just one container, so of course we will need to let's say to book different vehicles, and so the cost will increase because of that. And the second future development is mainly about the integration of different other modules within our simulator. And maybe more important one, it's the one about the risk module, the one that I said you before. And we are integrating it now, so what I can show you is only, let's say, a preview of what is going to happen, to be shown. As you can see here in the table of the details, we will have a new information panel when we will see different indicators for the risk, time reliability, safety, cost reliability, and flexibility for each one of the alternatives route. And we can, as you can see here, weight the 4 different indicators into a single, let's say, quality factor that will indicate how much risky it's our route. So again, this is a very powerful customizing feature of our system. This basically terminates our demo, and we thank you for your attention, and we give again the speak to Claudia.
Answer questions.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Daniele, for your presentation. If the attendees at the webinar wants to ask a question, please click on the icon and the top right to make a reservation. So, following the reservation order, I will give the floor to you. Okay, just a moment. Frank Wagner have a question. Frank?
Yes, thank you. I think it has been resolved so far. Thank you. It has been explained later.
Okay, thank you. Now, Daniele Seiten. Oh. Hi, Danielle. Danielle?
Hi. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
This is Aurora on behalf of Daniel Setien. Okay. He cannot join today's webinar, so I have a question. Is there any demo link that we can use for this application?
I can reply. Yes, basically what you have seen now, it's actually currently working on a server that we are using here at Politecnico of Torino. And if you follow exactly the link that you see in the screen, so isrv.polito.it column, the port is 8000, you can find this version of the simulator. But of course, this is let's say a developing system, so this is not intended to support any system yet. And I have to precise also that it is currently working on a very small subset of data. So I don't know how much can be useful, but if you want to test it and give us some feedback, you are very welcome.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There is a question from Robert Pell. Just a moment. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Raquel.
Hi.
What I have is that one of the issues that have been discussed in advisory board meetings has been the confidentiality of commercial data. And am I right in understanding now that on this module, each company that purchases a license to use the model can actually put their own unique data into the system, and calculate the routes that they wish on the basis of the their own personal data, and that beats some of the and that keeps some of the issues clear of the user companies having to share a common data platform.
Yes, as you said, the system provide, let's say, let's say a confidentiality of the data, because each one of the user can upload, put into the system its own data. But as I said before, the system also provide a core set of information, geospatial and commercial information. Currently, of course, they are, let's say, collected by some of the partners of our project. And just to give you some information about this core, we are using about 1,200 location all over the Europe, and some like millions, 1-2 millions of different commercial routes that link this location all over the Europe. So this is what the simulator currently provide to all the users. But of course, also this, let's say, database core can be improved by different partners. Each one of the user instead has the possibility to upload to the system by using its own, let's say, decision support system, or the GTFS edit, the editor of the data that I presented you before, to create the personal database of each one of the user. And let's say the personal database and the core one will be integrated together, and the alternatives will be optimized on the, let's say, on the complete database, not only on the user one. So that's this is in principle the first point. Another interesting issue, it's about the fact that each user has its own private data that are shared, for example, to the very final user at the moment when a user wants to really book a trip at the end of the searching process. So the application that I've shown you here is a simulator that it's mainly let's say dedicated to advanced users that are shippers, carriers that want to simulate a different transportation scenario and create the exact tenders and quotation for the routes. But at the end of the story, we see this, let's say, complete platform, the Synchro-NET platform, as a possible booking platform for final users that want to really ship their containers, their cargo from an origin to a destination.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other question is from Fernando Liesa. Hi, Fernando.
Yes, the question is for which kind of cargo is this simulator? It's only for containerized cargo, or it's also adding other kind of services, swap bodies or other type of units, or that if you could explain a little bit more on which kind of cargo is this for?
Yes. The basic principle of the simulator is based on a generalized cargo that has to be shipped from an origin to a destination. So the type of, let's say, of the items of the cargo is not, let's say, very important at the strategic levels. However, as I said before, we will improve the the detail of our simulator by creating, let's say, an analysis of cargoes divided by container. So we don't think at this strategic level that we will be able to go more deep into details of a cargo, because this project is mainly focused on synchro-modality, that is in reality deals with containers that are not unpacked during the trip. So we will consider that a container or a number of containers will be sent and unpacked just at the very final destination of the trip. Consolidation of containers. Yes, when we will implement this feature, we can let's say deal more realistically with those kind of consolidation needs that this type of cargo are subjected to. In fact, for example, we can share on the same vehicle or route different cargoes from different origins that go maybe to different destinations, but in that moment it's less costly, or I don't know, it's more reliable to put all the containers consolidated in the same ship, for example.
Any question?
Yes, Raquel, I have a further question.
Please.
Yeah. Is within the database on this model, is there facility for GPS monitoring, location monitoring of the cargo throughout its journey? And if any deviations to the plan occur, can calculations then be done to reroute that cargo if necessary? Say a particular area of the sea part suddenly has terrorist activity and it has to be moved, and then feed back the best solution?
Yes, very interesting question. Of course, this is interesting issues that we are, let's say, we are focusing it, but let's say in the main project. Our simulator does not go so much deep in details about real-time monitoring and tracking of the cargo, but I have to say that other software modules that will be developed by other partners in our project will do exactly that. So we'll have monitoring and tracking, and as you said, rerouting features when something goes wrong. So, for example, if a cargo is stuck into a very congested port, the responsible software module will recalculate all the new alternatives to go to the final destination by changing maybe the modes, the routes, the schedule, and so on. And I have to say that at the core of all those modules, there is anyway, let's say, our optimization strategies. So there is a very strong integration between those modules and the simulator that I've shown you before, and as what we call, let's say, this integration as dynamic distressing. So differently from the static distressing that I've shown you before, so the possibility to have different alternatives with different KPIs and customization of each route and each decision with respect to each user. The dynamic distressing, it's a sort of a dynamic process that iteratively find some new alternatives when something goes wrong in the plan. So the static alternatives that has its own, let's say, reliability, flexibility, and safety measure are monitored, and if something goes wrong, can be re-optimized and new alternatives can be found.
Thank you.
Any other question? Any other comments from Polito? Or
one possible final comment is that we are, of course, at your disposal for any other questions. Maybe you could put in the future. And I think that you, Claudia, organize a sort of, let's say, follow-up of this webinar in order to answer possible questions or comments, isn't it?
Okay. Thank you for your participation. I'll send an email with all detail of this webinar. And so if you want to give us other feedback, please feel free. And into this email that you receive, you will find a short questionnaire on the webinar as a tool of the communication activity. Thank you very much, and bye. Thank you, Raquel, and thank you, Roberto and Daniele.
Thank you very much for your coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.